Hey YouTube, if you remember I said I would make a video explaining the theory behind that radial cutting jig that I made, and so here it is. At this point what you've got here is a quarter of a log. This angle that I'm pointing out there is 90 degrees, so this is a 90-degree angle here from this side of the log to that side of the log down here. So the first cut you want to take naturally is the one that's going to give you the biggest board. So that's the cut through the center here. But before we get to that, I want you to notice something. The red lines represent either two 1x or a 2-inch board. The green from here down is 1 inch or 2 inches, and I've been cutting 2-inch boards as much as I can. So this represents a 2-inch board, and then this cream color up here represents a 2-inch board. Okay, so the first one we want to take out of here, out of this log, would be the biggest one. So if we kind of move these lines here a little bit, you'll be able to see just what's going to happen here with the first cut. Okay, so let me move that back here a little bit. Alright, so then that first, okay, so then that first log that we take out of there is going to knock everything out that's inside here. So let's just erase that out of there. So we would make the first cut, which is 1 inch above and 1 inch below the center line of the log, okay, or the pith, whatever you want to call it. So pretty much gotten rid of that stuff. Let me just go through here. Okay, so these are the pieces you have left. Now this is a 45 here. To pull this piece out of the middle, you need a 45. This side of the log has to sit on the 45, and that 45 degree angle would be in here. Okay, this angle in there. So what goes on here is you're cutting the center line out, and then you're left with these two wedges. Now if we're going to lay this wedge down on the jig the way I have it, with the bark to the right side, okay, of the sawmill, then what you need to do is you need to know the angle between any one of these three lines. These lines are parallel, okay? So between this line and this line, you need to know what that angle is there. And if you look, you see it's 15 degrees plus a very minor amount. Okay, 15 there. Yeah, right there, 15 degrees. So let me just go back. So that's why I have the 15 degree part of the jig. So we lay this long side on that 15 degrees, and that would make this board parallel to the bunk, and then the saw blade would cut straight through here, or however you want to cut it. Like I say, I'm going after 2-inch boards. Now the size of these boards that are left over, the first one there was 1, 2, each line represents an inch in the annual rings here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 inches roughly. Now this is an 18-inch log, and around here, because they've already done a lot of timbering in my area, the log sizes that you seem to be getting are things like 18 to 22 inches. 24 is considered a big log in my area. Now I'm not talking all of Pennsylvania here, I'm just talking about in my immediate area. So I'm working here with what would be a 16-inch log. So these pieces are only 8 inches wide. These from the center out, the radius. So anyway, this is 15 degrees here. Okay, this angle in here. So once you put this on the 15-degree angle, you can cut the biggest board you can grab out of this little piece, which is 1, 2, 3, 4.5-inch board. That would be quarter sawn. Then you'd have to square off this side as well. Alright, so then on top here, if you look at this one, we'll check this angle. We're going to measure from here to here. Okay, and you see there's a 30 there. Let me just bring it over a little bit so you can see it. So that's a 30-degree angle. Now, these angles are important to know this because in order for you to get the biggest board out of each chunk of wood, you need to know what angle that is. So one would be 15, and actually this side would be 15 and this side would be 30. Down here, this side would be 15, this side would be 30. So technically you could use just a 45 and a 30, or the 45 and the 15 on the angle to work this. But I like having the bark to the right because that gives the pin that I use to hold the wood a better place to grab. So that's how I'll be setting everything, and I'll have to adjust it according to however I make the cut. Because the different other parts of the trees, this angle is going to sort of rotate around there and change from 15 to 30, 15 to 30 as you go. But here's what's important about this thing that you need to realize. All of these lines, if we extend these, let me just extend this. If we extend that, you can see that it goes through the center of the log, or the pith. Okay, the pith is that little, whoop, wrong one. The pith would be this little center line here. Okay, let me just go beyond that. There we go. Okay, so the pith would be this little circle here, I mean. And this board originates from the center, and these lines are parallel to the center line. Okay. This line originates from the center. This is the center of the tree, okay, or the pith. Because trees are not perfectly round, and sometimes the pith is off to one side slightly. I mean, not a lot, but it can be off pretty much. The other day I had a tree that I cut, and it was so weird because when you had one piece of wood, you literally had the rays of the annual rings, or the annual ring sections, going in one way, and at the other end of the board they actually went the opposite way because there was a bump in the tree, and it grew around this bump that had apparently hit the tree somehow. It was really weird. I'll have to show you that, because if I had to ask somebody to make a cut like that, they'd never be able to make it. But anyway, everything comes from the center, as well as the center board that we took out of here. So if we come over there, you'll see that let me just get that in there better. Yeah, there we go. Every single one of these lines runs through the center of the tree, and that's why I'm calling it a radial cut. And this is why you cannot get anything other than quarter sawn wood, because as long as your cut originates in the center and you're running out to the outer edge, you'll always get quarter sawn. That's why when you slab cut and you get down to the center of the tree, you automatically get a quarter sawn board out of the middle. So that's how that works. So I hope this helps, and this is going to be the last thing I'm going to say about quarter sawn unless somebody else asks me. But this was the basis for the tool: the 15-degree angle, the 45-degree angle, and the 30-degree angle. This was the basis for it. Now naturally, as the tree gets bigger, the bigger tree, you may want to have a bigger jig. The jig that I made was based on these dimensions here. Let me just show you this. It was based on this dimension here, and if you look there, you're looking at 4 and 15/32, so roughly 4.5 inches. Okay, so that's why I only made that plate 4 inches wide, because on a 16-inch log, this log will rest on that without wanting to flop over. Now naturally, if you had a 36-inch log and you're looking at 18-inch pieces, that jig may not be big enough to cut those. Now it all depends on how it grabs the wood. It may grab it. I haven't tried a bigger log than this, so kind of up in the air on how that would be. But the jig works fine for this size of a log. Say, I would say anything from 12 to, I don't know, 20 inches maybe, probably work fine. But this is how I designed it, by coming from the center of the tree with every single cut. And then what's in between there, like from here to here, is actually waste. However, you don't have to waste it if you don't want to. These lines just represent the biggest area that you can get a piece of wood out of. So in other words, if I were to take 45 and divide that in half, 22.5, I could use those numbers, and then 11.25. I could use those numbers to cut these radial cuts. However, the problem with it is I would not get as big a board. The boards sort of compound on one another and lay down closer to the middle angle there. So this was spread open just enough to get the widest board left in each chunk of wood. Okay, so you're looking like this board would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and roughly a ½ inches wide. Plus you'll have to take a little bit off here for the sapwood, you know, if you want to, and that would give you the board you could work with. So there's a lot of extra work to this, but I was just wondering why we always have to have allowances for things like plus or minus 30 degrees. I didn't want that. I wanted the angle that run from here to here to the face of the board to be a 90-degree angle, and that's what I have. And that's all there is to this. So guys, if you have questions, you can certainly ask them in the comments, but this is how that tool was designed. 15, 30 degrees in here, and 45 overall for this big piece of wood. Alright, so have a good one, and thanks for watching. Bye.